needed to be rebuilt. It was the price she would pay for injuring Giselle. The Locksley family didn't expect Ariana to come so soon, but they made it very clear that they wouldn't pay a cent. Sandor and Arista would deal with it on their own. When Arista saw Ariana, she was furious, because she felt it was hers. I can deduct $3.2 million from the bill, so you only need to pay me $120 million. Oh, I also won't ask you to pay for the loss of business while the stores need to be rebuilt. That's the price I will pay for injuring Giselle. Arista opened her mouth to say something, but Ariana cut her off. Don't think I'm taking advantage of you. My stores make hundreds of thousands of dollars in a day, and the rebuilding will take at least 10 days. I also calculated the loss according to the cost prices, not the profit value. Otherwise, the total number would be even higher. So in many ways, I'm giving you a discount, she added. Although Felix had told them that the loss would be over $100 million, Arista still couldn't accept the exact number. What? $120 million? That can't be right, she cried. She didn't feel grateful for Ariana's generosity at all. I have a surveillance video of it, and I can give you a copy, shrugged Ariana. Arista was struck dumb. The truth was, they didn't really think that Ariana would make a fake list, but she couldn't accept the huge amount. And I know it's a lot of money for you, so I can give you all the damaged jade. You can make it into jewelry and sell it. You might get a few dozen $1 million back from it, offered Ariana. Then she took out a box from her telepathic eye space and placed it on the ground. It was very generous of her. When onlookers saw the box, which appeared from nowhere, they were all shocked. Did Ariana have an infinite pouch? That was the only magical objects they knew about that could store things like that, so they didn't have other ideas. At any rate, it was understandable if Ariana had an infinite pouch, since she was Ezekiel's disciple. If you're still not satisfied, I think I can only go to the Onsera for help, said Ariana in the end. Upon hearing that she would go to the Onsera, Arista closed her mouth, although she still felt aggrieved. Since Ariana made it so clear, Sandor didn't think the list was fake. No matter how reluctant he was to pay the bill, he had to accept it. Fine, but we can't pay so much money right now. Can you give us a few more days? He pleaded. He could take out his money in a few days, but Arista needed more time to sell her stuff. Sandor, Arista moaned. She was slightly anxious when he accepted the amount so quickly, but she also knew that it was impossible for them to deny it. As a result, she didn't know what to say. How many days do you need? Asked Ariana. She wouldn't force them to pay her the money right away, because it was indeed a lot. How about a month? I can transfer $70 million to your account this week. As for the remaining $50 million, I need to sell some properties, so I need more time, explained Sandor. Fine, Ariana agreed, then continued. In that case, we need to sign an agreement. You can check the damaged jewelry as well. Arista immediately went to open the box to look at the damaged jewelry. In the box, each piece of jewelry was wrapped in a gift package with a list of the original price and cost. She understood that jade was very profitable Arista was right. Kendra disliked her tone. Arista, don't be so mean. I just want to help you so that you can get some money back. How could you judge me like that? She responded, acting hurt. If you know I need money to pay the compensation, how can you offer such a low price? You merely want to take advantage of us. If I sell it to someone else, I can get $50,000 more, insisted Arista. Arista, we're family. No need to care too much about money, said Arista's younger sister-in-law, Saffron. She also wanted to buy a piece of jade, but she was unwilling to pay such a high price for it. If you take me as family, shouldn't you help me with paying the compensation? Arista retorted mockingly. Both Kendra and Saffron were embarrassed and didn't know what to say. It was impossible for them to help pay much of the compensation because they couldn't make money easily. Alvina actually had the same intention of getting a few pieces of jewelry at the lowest price, but now she felt that she couldn't say anything. Sandor was signing the agreement with Ariana on the side, but he still heard their conversation. He didn't say anything, but he felt that Kendra and Saffron were shameless. He and Arista badly needed money at this moment, but they wouldn't force their other family members to help them with it. However, if their family members tried to take advantage of them when they were helpless, they wouldn't grin and bear it. Although Ariana had no interest in their family affair, she also felt that Kendra and Saffron's behavior was unacceptable. It seemed that there were rude relatives in every family. Kendra and Saffron were unwilling to give up, so they exchanged a glance and reached a tacit agreement. Afterward, Kendra said, "Well, we don't have much money in our pockets. However, we won't force you to sell it to us at a low price. We didn't mean to take advantage of you. We just wanted to help in case you couldn't sell it. But our mother-in-law is senior to all of us. It's our filial duty to be kind to her, right? In that case, Arista, you shouldn't think about giving some of the jewelry to Elvina as a gift." "I agree. Although all the jewelry is damaged, I think our mother-in-law won't mind," added Saffron. Hearing their words, Elvina became happy. She definitely wouldn't mind, especially if it was free. Although the Locksley family was wealthy, and Elvina had plenty of beautiful jewelry, she was used to taking advantage of other people. Whenever there was a chance, she wouldn't hesitate to exploit others. Arista replied through gritted teeth, "Of course, as a daughter-in-law, I ought to be kind to Elvina, but Sandor and I are in a mess right now, and we need money. I don't expect mother-in-law to help us out, but please don't cause more trouble for us." Once she finished speaking, she turned to look at Elvina and asked, "Am I right, Elvina?" Arista was smarter than Kendra and Saffron. She was a little impulsive and arrogant because she was born into a powerful family. But once she calmed down and thought about it carefully, she could come up with smart ideas. Although Elvina loved to take advantage of other people, she cared about her reputation too. Therefore, after she heard Arista's words, she was displeased and snapped at Kendra and Saffron. "Why did you two bring me into this all of a sudden? Do I need more jewelry? I don't want other people to think I would force Arista to give me a gift." Kendra and Saffron didn't dare to say anything further after Elvina snapped at them. They had lived with her for years, so they clearly understood what kind of person she was. They didn't want to anger her further. By this time, Ariana had written the agreement, and Sandor had read it through, then signed his name on the dot. Ariana left the Locksley family's house. It was time for dinner, so Felix invited her to have a meal with them. Since she wasn't in a rush to go home, she accepted his invitation. Ariana was a distinguished guest of the Bulbous family, so they were very respectful of her. The housekeeper ran over at once when Felix said, "Patriarch, Miss Frost has come. She's talking with your parents in the living room at the moment," he explained, looking like he was passing on a piece of bad news. Upon hearing the name Miss Frost, Felix frowned. He didn't hate this woman, but he had mixed emotions towards her. Ariana gave Felix Felix would have asked for some privacy while he talked to Miss Frost. In the living room, Bodhi and Sylvia were chatting with a beautiful young woman. There was a smile on each of their faces.
आपका केवाईसी कंप्लीट नहीं है। अभी लिंक पे क्लिक करें, वरना अकाउंट ब्लॉक हो जाएगा। अकाउंट ब्लॉक? मेरे पैसे? पर ये लिंक फ्रॉड निकला तो कुछ नहीं होगा, क्योंकि एयरटेल नेटवर्क का एआई अब फ्रॉड लिंक्स को खुलने नहीं देगा, चाहे वो किसी भी ऐप या प्लेटफॉर्म से आए।
And the atmosphere was quite pleasant. When Felix and Ariana walked in, the young woman immediately stood up. She turned to look at Felix and greeted him. "Hi, Felix. Nice to see you again," she said shyly. There was obvious affection in her eyes. "Hi, Miss Frost," Felix replied in a flat voice. The next moment, Miss Frost smiled at Ariana and asked gently, "This must be Miss Young, right?" Although this was their first meeting, she had heard a lot about Ariana in the world of immortals. Therefore, she guessed correctly once she saw her. Since she knew Ariana's identity, she didn't get jealous when she walked in with Felix. "Yes, I'm Ariana Young. Nice to meet you," replied Ariana. She had actually seen Miss Frost before, at the Osiris headquarters, but she hadn't heard her name back then. "Nice to meet you, Miss Young. I'm Evangeline Frost," Miss Frost introduced herself. "Don't just stand there. Come here and have a seat," invited Sylvia. Hearing that, everyone obeyed and walked over. Ariana also exchanged greetings with Bodhi and Sylvia. "How is everything?" Sylvia asked with concern. She had heard about what had happened between Ariana and Giselle, and she was angry at Giselle's behavior. "It's settled now. Giselle's father agreed to compensate me, but they can't give me that much money right now. They need a month," explained Ariana. "That's great," Sylvia responded, relieved. Although she knew Giselle's parents ought to pay the compensation, she was afraid it might not be solved smoothly. After all, it was a lot of money, and Arista wouldn't easily accept the result. At any rate, since Sandor agreed to pay the compensation, there shouldn't be a problem. "Does Ava know?" Bodhi asked, sounding worried. Because Ariana got involved in this trouble because of Ava, he was afraid it might cause a grudge between the two of them. From Bodhi's expression, Ariana could see what he was thinking, so she explained. "She knows, and she blamed herself, but it actually has nothing to do with her. Besides, I had conflicts with her before as well." She said that to make them think that Giselle destroyed her stores, not only because of Ava. She didn't want them to feel guilty. They were all relieved to see that Ariana wasn't mad at Ava at all. Evangeline glanced at Felix once in a while, but he never paid attention to her. Instead, he felt slightly uneasy. When Bodhi and Sylvia looked at Evangeline, they were obviously very satisfied. But when they turned to look at Felix, they had a resigned look. "Felix, you're not young anymore, but you're still single. Your father and I can't wait to have a grandchild. We don't care whether you have a son or daughter, but you must have a child someday. Do you plan to stay single forever?" asked Sylvia seriously. Although she purposely said that at this moment, it was the truth. She really wanted to see Felix get married. They had talked about it before, but Felix never took it seriously. Evangeline lowered her head and flushed when she heard Sylvia's words. Felix was very nervous and muttered, "Can we talk about it in private? There is a guest here." In fact, Felix understood his parents' concerns, and he felt a little guilty for worrying them for so many years. He agreed that it was time for him to get married, but he didn't know how to accept Evangeline. He didn't hate her. Actually, he had a good impression of her, but there was a huge gap between them. To be frank, he was old enough to be her father. Although Evangeline didn't care about that, he cared. "You never listened to me when I talked to you in private," responded Sylvia. She had spoken to Felix about getting married countless times, but he wouldn't listen. "Right, Uncle Felix, you're only getting older. I think you should have gotten married long ago. Don't delay it any longer," Ariana chimed in. "Do you have to say that?" Felix moaned, giving Ariana a glare. She was adding fuel to the flames. When Sylvia heard Ariana's reply, she became even more emphatic. "Hear that? Ariana agrees with me. How long do you plan to delay it? Do you plan to stay single forever?" she pressed. Evangeline got a bit worried and looked upset. Would Felix be single forever, or did he just not have feelings for her? She understood why Felix was avoiding her, because he told her in the past that they eventually took over the Bulbous family, and there was a lot for him to learn. As for getting married and raising a family, he was a normal man and had thought about it, but he was very busy. Well, Sylvia sighed. She didn't know what to say, because she didn't want to exhaust her son. Although Felix said he didn't have enough time to think about a romantic relationship, which was disappointing, he also implied that he intended to have a family in the future. Evangeline was relieved, because that meant she still had a chance. She was a smart girl, and she wouldn't bother Felix all the time, because that would only leave a bad impression on him. She knew where to stop. Before long, the food was brought to the table, and Evangeline stayed to share the meal with them. She was pleasant and polite as always, as they all chatted with each other. After the meal, Ariana left. Evangeline didn't stay either, and she walked out of the house with her. Felix wanted to send someone to escort Ariana out of the city, but Ariana declined. However, Evangeline offered to walk her out before she went home, so Felix and the others didn't insist. There was a long distance between the Bulbous family's house and the gate of the city, so Ariana didn't actually plan to let Evangeline really walk her the whole way. After all, it was their first meeting. Therefore, after leaving the Bulbous family's property, Ariana said, "Miss Frost, you can go home now. I'll walk out on my own." "Miss Young, it's not a big deal. I have nothing else to deal with right now. Just allow me to walk you to the gate. Besides, it's nice to take a walk after a hearty meal," insisted Evangeline. She really didn't mind. In that case, Ariana didn't turn her down again. Otherwise, it would have been rude. Along the way, Evangeline chatted with her casually, but neither of them mentioned their personal affairs. "Miss Young, if you don't mind, can we exchange numbers? I know this is our first meeting, and it might be a little forward, but I really hope we can be friends," requested Evangeline. Normally, people were either jealous of outstanding people or wanted to make friends with them. In Evangeline's case, she felt no jealousy towards Ariana. She only admired her, because Ariana was extremely outstanding. In addition, for the sake of Felix, she wanted to form a good relationship with her. She loved Felix, so she hoped the people who were close to him might give her a helping hand to get together with him. Of course, Ariana agreed. She didn't hesitate to accept, because she had a good impression of Evangeline. Whether they could become friends or not, it wasn't bad for them to keep in touch. After that, they exchanged phone numbers. Evangeline walked Ariana out of Sky City and then returned. Because it was late when Ariana got back to Los Angeles, she didn't go to her university or the bungalow. Instead, she decided to go to Greystone Gardens. This was the first time that she had stayed there alone. Henry wasn't with her, and she felt lonely. It had been 10 days, but he still hadn't contacted her. She wondered how his task was going. Ariana took out her phone and called him. Even though she knew he would call her once he had time, she missed him a lot, and she hoped that he would answer. However, his phone was still turned off. Ariana couldn't sleep, so she chatted with her friends in their WeChat group. Clara has been filming most of the time lately. Although she wasn't the leading actress in the film, she played an important role. Therefore, she spent most of her time on set, and rarely had time to chat with her friends during the day. At that moment, she had just finished shooting for the night, and returned to her hotel to rest. She finally had time to chat with her friends. Everyone asked her whether she was tired. Although filming was indeed tiring, she was enjoying it. Clara loved acting, and didn't care about the fame and wealth associated with it. Ariana had the least time to chat with them, so they focused on her once she joined Ariana became very worried. It was Friday when she received a call from Ava, who told her that General Russell just called her. He wanted them to provide backup for Henry on a task because he had encountered trouble. Upon hearing that, Ariana was nervous. It seems that she had been so anxious these days for a reason. Henry was indeed in trouble. Is he all right? She asked in a hurry. She was mostly worried about his safety now. I don't know the details, but I think he's fine. The other members of the Red Flame said that he went undercover in a mutants organization. Before he left, he told his comrades to report it to General Russell if he couldn't get out within 5 days. Now it has been over a week, so they called the general, who called me afterwards, explained Ava. Even though she felt that Henry should be able to protect himself, given his abilities, and that he should be safe, they were still worried about him. After all, he went to deal with mutants this time, which were very dangerous. If there were only a few of them, Henry could handle it. But no one knew how many mutants there were. No matter how strong Henry was, he couldn't survive if there were too many enemies. Ariana realized it was serious, so she became anxious too. Without delay, she left UCLA and went to meet Ava at the bungalow. The mission was on the coast of Brazil, in Rio de Janeiro. Right after Ava called Ariana, she booked plane tickets to go there. It normally took over 12 to 14 hours to fly to Brazil, but she paid extra to book tickets on a high-speed plane, so they would arrive in 10 hours. After Ariana reached the bungalow, she picked up Ava and Ezekiel before heading straight to the airport. Ezekiel decided to go with them because Henry was involved in a dangerous task this time. He trusted that Ariana and Ava could handle it without him, but he was also very interested in mutants and wanted to know more about them. Also, he wanted to make sure Henry was all right. He was his disciple, so he cared about him. Ariana and the others arrived at the airport and headed to the international gate. After going through security, there was about half an hour until it was time to start boarding the plane. Normally, they needed to arrive at the airport 1 or 2 hours in advance, so there were many people already by the gate. Because it was an international flight, many passengers from Brazil were also there. They were in a public place, so they didn't talk about Henry or his task, but Ariana talked to Ava about Felix. Ava, I visited the Bulbous family yesterday. disgrace to this country," stated Ariana in a flat voice, but it was a sharp comment. The other locals felt satisfied to hear that. Even though they didn't want to get involved in the argument, they actually disliked the local man for helping the two men from Brazil bully the two American girls. The man immediately got angry and snapped at Ariana. "It's my own business. This has nothing to do with you. You have no right to judge me." "I know, but I just wanted to stop you. Since you can bully other people, why can't I bully you?" retorted Ariana aggressively. She had no kindness for bullies. The man narrowed his eyes and threatened, "Don't think I won't beat you just because you're a woman." As he said that, he held up his fists like he was ready to fight, trying to scare Ariana. When the onlookers saw that, they were worried about Ariana. The two girls were also anxious, so one of them whispered to her, "It's not a big deal. Don't try to fight. We can't win against them." Although they were mad, too, their safety was more important than proving a point. "I'll be fine," Ariana said to comfort them. The two girls were still very worried, but they couldn't stop Ariana, so they said nothing further. "Try to hurt me if you can," Ariana sneered at the man. The man got even angrier after that. He badly wanted to punch Ariana, but his reason stopped him. After all, he was in an airport, and many people were staring at him. Ariana then turned away from the local man and turned to look at the two men from Brazil. "How could you insult Americans when you're guests in our country? Do you think we're easy to bully?" accused Ariana. "So what? What can you do to us?" one of the Brazilian men sneered. He looked down arrogantly at Ariana. Upon hearing that, many onlookers were furious. "They're so mean. How can they be so aggressive?" a man murmured in disapproval. "Right. What do they think they are?" accused another man. "They are completely full of themselves and are acting too aggressive," added someone else. Everyone criticized them, but no one dared to stand up against them. Although these men from Brazil were indeed arrogant, many Brazilian people were very nice. Therefore, another man from Brazil, who had been sitting and watching the drama, finally stood up and said to the two men, "You two should show some respect." When the two men heard that, they didn't feel guilty. Instead, they became more aggressive, and one of them snapped, "It's none of your business. These girls, like all Americans, are idiots." When onlookers heard his words, they were angry. He was an extremely rude and prejudiced man. Right at that moment, Ariana threw an apple, and it flew directly into the mouth of the man from Brazil, blocking his mouth. He had to stop his insults. That scene surprised everyone, and they all agreed that it was an extremely impressive throw. However, some people thought she just had good luck. Nevertheless, whether it was because of her ability or good luck, everyone was pleased to see it happen. The man's mouth stung as the apple stuffed his mouth. He couldn't pull it off until he used a lot of force. "Damn you people," the man from Brazil swore in fury. It appeared as if he wanted to beat Ariana up in retaliation. Without delay, he threw the apple at her. He didn't care whether she was injured or not. The crowd collectively gasped because they didn't want Ariana to be hurt. To their surprise, she raised her leg and easily kicked the apple away. The apple flew up in the air and finally fell into a trash can 15 feet away. It shocked the crowd. If it was because of good luck that she was able to throw the apple to shut the man's mouth, then she must have relied on her abilities to kick the apple into the trash can. She looked like a soccer star. Seeing that, the two arrogant men from Brazil nervously swallowed. They were a little scared and felt that it wouldn't be easy to bully Ariana, but their pride wouldn't allow them to yield. If they gave in so easily, they would be humiliated. People might think they were afraid of a young woman. Most importantly, Ariana was an American. If she were also a person from Brazil, they would have stopped arguing with her. "How can you Americans treat your foreign friends so rudely? You should be polite and respectful to us," one of the Brazilian men accused. "Foreign friends?" Ariana snorted, finding it extremely funny. After that, she coldly looked at the man and said in a cold tone, "Of course, if you're really our friends, we'll be polite to you. But are you our friends? You came to our country, yet you bullied these girls and insulted Americans. You humiliated us. Do you think we'll respect you? It's already very nice of me that I didn't punch you. It's insane for you to even ask me for politeness. Oh, are you implying that rudeness is your way of politeness? If so, I'm treating you the same way you treated me and my fellow citizens. You can't forbid other two men from Brazil. However, the local man who supported the two men earlier did nothing. He didn't think Ariana's words were wrong, but he was too embarrassed to admit his mistake. Some onlookers from Brazil felt ashamed of the men's rude behavior. They were two bad eggs, and not every Brazilian was like that. The two men from Brazil didn't know what to say in response, and they felt stressed facing Ariana. Staff from around the gate heard their argument and walked over, but they didn't stop them. Instead, they sided with Ariana. They never liked rude bullies, no matter where they were from. The boarding will begin in 10 minutes. In order to not delay the departure, please apologize to these two girls, ordered Ariana. She disliked the two men, but there was no need to continue arguing with them. Apologize? No way, one of the men scoffed. He and his companion felt humiliated when Ariana asked them to apologize, so they immediately refused. No, Ariana repeated menacingly, glaring at them. The two men were even more stressed than before and could hardly breathe. At that moment, they were terrified of her. Even the onlookers were affected and suddenly found Ariana a little scary. Without a word, Ariana continued to coldly stare at them. She wanted to see how long they could stay so arrogant. The two girls didn't think they needed an apology because they were afraid the two men might take revenge, but they didn't know how to say it. They felt they couldn't embarrass Ariana and their country. After all, they cared a lot about their dignity. No one said anything, as everyone focused on the two men. In the end, the men couldn't bear the pressure any longer and apologized. "I'm sorry," they both mumbled. No matter how reluctant the apology was, they had given in, so Ariana stopped putting pressure on them. "You can do whatever you want in your own country, but behave when you are in our country. Don't think we're easy to bully," Ariana reminded them. The two men were humiliated by the result, but they knew